Hello, this is Joe. How you guys doing out there? And fellas, ladies, whatever. I started a podcast on dealing with childhood trauma, um, basically to address some of the manifestations that childhood trauma had produced in my life. And I said podcast, not video. It's morphed in something more after I addressed the childhood trauma. Now, as you've heard me speak about, I'm spiritual. And I'm explaining the scene that we have in front of us right now. I'm holding this. Forgive me for my hand being shaky or whatever. But while I speak, I want you guys to look at this. This is definitely Walt Disney movie, something that they produced. It was for children, and I'm just gonna leave that like that, and I'm gonna speak some. So after the childhood trauma, the manifestations in my adult life, I began to speak about being spiritual. Being spiritual because I felt that I was pushed or tugged to become a believer in Christianity or Islam or any of the name brand, that's a good way to put it, name brand religions out there. And I decided I'm just going to be spiritual and I'm going to deal with energy. And with me coming to just basically accept who I am and that which I believe created everything, in addition believing that we are energy and these are just suits. The human body is just a suit for the energy that resides inside of each of us, being either positive or negative, but both are required. And fundamentally, I believe that we all have to experience being a negative energy to finally graduate to be a positive energy. There's a balance. There's a duality with things, and the fact that there's a duality, that's why there's positive and negative. Going back to the Bible, I spoke this before. Biblically, it states in the beginning there was darkness. Darkness is a singularity. Darkness is one thing, and as the Bible goes on to state, the Creator said, let there be light. So that singularity, just darkness, had a polar opposite of itself, which was light. And that moved from being dark as a singularity to being dark and light as a duality. I'm going to leave that for you to ponder. I'm going to speak about this here. You know, as a child, this would probably be a movie that I would enjoy, not knowing anything subliminal that may be transmitted. And what I mean transmitted is planted in the subconscious. But I'm going to tell you what I see here. Well, I think I've told you, but because I've actually written it in. These characters, we have a female fox, as I've termed that, fraternal order of X, feminine. Then we have a male fox. I term that fraternal order of X, masculine. Then we have a bear here. The name that's on that bear's head is California. Happens to be the state animal or something like that. Yeah, Okay, now we're going to move over here. Then we got the snake. Let me see if I can zoom this in. This ain't like a... There we go. I apologize for that. Then we have a snake here, if you can see. And what I termed the snake is witches, warlocks, and or CIA or the government. That could also include the FBI. Snakes. And you see the snake has a bag of gold or something valuable that his tail is wrapped around. Then you have over here a lion. Okay? King of the jungle. Got a handful of doubloons or whatever, and I've named that the British Empire. Now, look at the title. Robin Hood or Robin the Hood? Okay. Now I think I can speak about this. Let me set this up on my little thing. I'm tired of holding it. And now I can speak. For a while, I've been in a psychological stupor. For those of you that are listening, I attended 8 years of community college, taking every psychological course I could take, not for the necessity of choosing it as a career, even though that is something I would love to do. But at that particular time, my entire life had crashed down on me. There were so many things that had happened to me. And the only thing I had in the back of my mind was I come from what I believe or thought was a family that, well, since I remember them, were in poverty, Southside Chicago, and the challenges that my family had undergone, even to the point of getting rid of myself and my other siblings, who I believe were my siblings, sent us off to foster care because they were in no situation in poverty to really care for us. So that was understandable. But then my world got worse, because when I entered into poverty, well, when I entered into foster care, same thing, I was abused like it was the thing to do. Mind you, as I stated earlier, that abuse had occurred to me at the tender age of 7 or 8, before I went into foster care. And then when I went into foster care, it just picked up, like it amped up, like it went. It's crazy. So I'm going to tie this in with the picture that I showed you guys. Robin the Hood. Okay, Robin Hood. I'm going to tie this in. So I went in foster care, and then I was subsequently abused multiple different times, multiple different foster homes, to the point at a young age, 8, 9, 10 years old, you believe this is what life is about. Not knowing that there was an agenda in the background for the reason for me being abused, versus maybe my other foster brothers who were Jewish, and they were to abuse me. I mentioned this before, and I didn't get down like that. You know, today I identify as being bisexual because of the experiences that I've gone through. But make no mistake, I don't care for nothing in my mouth, unlike what had happened to me when I was 8 years of age, and I definitely don't care for nothing in my rectum, as it was attempted when I was in foster care. And no, I'm not so me being bisexual, as I'm going to say, I am a top. I recognize that while this present time I may be in a a feminine energy simply because I have not been given authority over that which I believe I have authority over. And I'll explain that. So, still maintaining my authority, I started my own company. I have an LLC, and that I'm spearheading with the different videos and podcasts that I also have to tell a story. And I think that the overwhelming question that I'm going to put in you guys' head is a question that was written in a notebook inside my home that I know that I did not write. The question that was posed was, how do secret societies make money? So now, let me explain. The purpose, me being in foster care, was to make sure that I did not have any connections to anyone that was actually blood related to me. While I grew up believing that my brothers and sisters and mom were especially, exactly who they're supposed to be, I hold that right now in a very high unprobable. Oh, is that a word? It's a highly probable. Let me go this way. It's highly probable, or there's a high probability that they are not, and that I am a child from who I don't know. I'm gonna say that honestly, but I was to be afflicted with childhood trauma, sexual abuse, so that I may go on in life and manifest the effects as I described in earlier videos or maybe my podcast. Victims of childhood trauma, women they end up getting in the sex industry. Men, if they're not fortunate to get in the sex industry to address that manifestation, they end up being deviants, pedophiles, rapists. So this is what really, really throws me the hell off. Why the heck would anyone subject a child to being abused? And it has been psychologically proven that those children would grow up and manifest the experiences that they themselves were put in and or under. This is the curveball. My foster father was Army, retired, or honorably discharged, and he was effeminate. And I've drawn the line to connect the dots that he worked for the CIA. And the CIA at that particular time was very interested. I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a guy in Germany, I believe, a psychologist that was placing foster youth in the home of pedophiles to study the children being raised by a pedophile. At the same time that was happening, my foster parent was in the military, and dare I say, even in Germany at that time. Let me finish, this gets good. So the CIA takes an interest in my foster father, who was effeminate, probably had, run-ins with other male soldiers. And they saw my foster father as the perfect mantelpiece, if I would say, for the CIA to conduct their own experimentation, such as Kentler, I think his last name is Kentler, this German psychologist last name Kentler. What he was doing and the results that he got, might I add, the individuals that the psychologist in Germany, Kentler, actually subjected these children to, he was found liable, and those children were paid for the damage and the harm and the molestation from this experiment that Kintler did in Germany. Those children were compensated. Here in America, that is yet to be known. This is the purpose of this video. At the same time, foster father stationed in Germany, the CIA saw him as the perfect individual to place foster youth in his care as a pedophile and a caretaker, so that he may raise men, particularly African American men, to be pedophiles, so that they would end up locked up or dead because of that. So we're going to deviate, sidestep to the what was, brought attention to in the industry with the effeminization of the black man in America. There were all sorts of ways and methods that they were using. At the time that this happened to me, I was in foster care just about, I'm believing, the beginning of the 80s. And at the same time, the CIA had, I believe they were funneling, trafficking drugs in California to buy weapons for another country. So you're bringing harm to your citizens that were African American by bringing these drugs in, which mean also that the CIA had a contact with mafia or cartel to get these drugs. So I want you to understand the partnership that the U.S. government has, or at least a branch of its intelligence agency, with cartel, with mafia, with doing the drug deal. And as long as you're putting these drugs in the black people hood, that was one way of sterilizing, stunting the growth of black men and removing the black man from the family unit, leaving the women to raise the children and as such susceptible to the advances of other men of other races, to view black men as not worthy, when these black men were very much so worthy, but they were not given the opportunity for education. They were not given opportunity for job training. And I'm personally feeling that I know what that feels like right now, because that's similar to my situation right now with one variable, well, several, but I'm former military too, so I do have expertise or knowledge in certain different areas, in addition to psychology. But the manifestations of my childhood trauma had me in a lifestyle that I had no business. And now I understand why I was there. Because being a former foster youth and actually having the CIA choreograph an identical experiment that this psychologist in Germany, Kintler, started. They did it here as another way of effeminating the black man. Whether that meant sending drugs in the hood so that black men become drug dealers or drug users. And as you know, with drugs, you'll bend over and you'll suck up right. To that not being good enough, so let's get to the black men, black kids. Let's get to the African American. Let's get to them young when they're impressionable. So that's when they replicated the experiment. I believe the CIA replicated the experiment that Kintler was doing. Now, the backstory is my foster father worked for the Jewish Children's Bureau in Illinois. And I do happen to know that there was something that happened, and instead of him getting in trouble, he moved from the Jewish Children's Bureau to the Department of Children and Family Services, where I later would come into his care and subsequent abuse. Now, here's the interesting thing about the abuse. The first time I had been abused as a youth, I did feel violated. I felt it was wrong. But when I got to this home by this effeminate African-American former military drill instructor, I didn't feel like it was wrong, because the dynamics of the abuse had changed, where in the beginning I was taken advantage of. But in this home, in this foster home, which I believe, again, was under surveillance by the CIA, if it's an experiment, it's under surveillance. They changed the dynamics of this experiment by me not being taken advantage of to me being rewarded for my behavior. And I'm able to state and say that because of my little psychological schooling I've had. I can see this, now I think about it, it was operant conditioning that was done so that me as a foster youth would grow up, and the manifestations of this childhood trauma would end up with the likely results of me being a pedophile, a rapist, and subsequently going to jail or getting killed, which is you're getting rid of the black man, the African American. But those that you will be getting rid of would be the ones that are sent into the foster care system. So now, what's unique about the foster care system? I personally happen to know that I was in, of the 6 or 7 foster homes that I was in, I would say more than half of those foster homes were individuals that were members of secret societies. So let's put this together. It's already known, if you guys didn't know, that CIA does conduct experiments for intelligence, counter-espionage, and things of that sort. But they need individuals to test this equipment or way of doing things. Who do they get to test these things on? They do test them on American citizens, but it's a particular type of American citizen. The American citizen that they test these methods and drugs and stuff like that, if you know about the mushroom and all this stuff, they test it on the members of secret societies. So now you got members of secret societies that are foster parents, which allows the CIA to come in to use those foster parents that are members of a secret society to do what it is that they need to do to these foster youth, me specifically. But I know I'm not the only one. The fact that I'm alive at this particular point says something. So this is like a long story and it gets crazy, but I knew that I was going to go into the military. It was put into me to go in the military. I stated before, I played the lottery for this foster parent. First time he ever asked, I went and played. He gave me money to play, get a ticket for myself. I won. The first time I ever played for lottery or lotto, I won. $79. 79 is GI. I was going to the military, and that's exactly what I did. That's how I know that this was the CIA. Presently, right now, I'm still dealing with the CIA. But let me explain this. You have the CIA that is funneling drugs into California, the ghettos, whatever, to fund Iran-Contras. That was in the 80s. That's what they said. They were selling the drugs to people in the ghettos to buy, guns in another country, right? So now we've confirmed that the CIA does have connections with people in the underworld that deal with drugs. America is an investment. America has to be an investment. It is an investment. Investment for who? For people in other countries to come here and want to live and start a business. Mind you, the people that live here, and particularly African Americans, we're not given 7-8 years tax-free status and given an X amount of dollars to open a 7-Eleven. We're not given that, but they do that for people to come here and sell stuff to us. Like the citizens here in the United States, you are only an investment, something that they can make money off of. There is, dare I say, your birth certificate. It is known, I do not know the amount, but it is known the amount of money that you possibly could make in a lifetime. That is a binding contract by having a birth certificate in the United States. Your birth certificate is attached to a certain number that you would be able to make in a lifetime. Now, let me go back. We established that CIA did the drug thing, right? So how do you keep America an investment? Well, you have to have poverty. You have to have people that want to come here for a better life, and a great, not everyone, but you'll hear some success stories. I find it darn interesting how you can have, or we can have, people come from other countries and do better than the people that live in this country, the people that were born in this country. They are doing better than us. There has to be something holding, oppressing, suppressing our productivity. That which I believe is oppressing and suppressing productivity, specifically I'm speaking about African Americans, is the very government. Because we are viewed as a number, an investment number. For you to get out from under that contract has individuals that will, maybe you can sing a tune or shoot a jump shot or hit a ball or catch a ball. So that affords you some reprieve as far as your birth certificate. In that sense, I think that you would surpass the amount that you were projected to make by you becoming a singer or a sports figure or something like that, or anything in the industry. So you would, whether we know it or not, you would exceed the amount that was projected that you would make. Pay attention to a lot of people that are in the industry, that people like me, people like you out there, we listen to them, we watch them, football, basketball, whatever, and they end up having people that's close to them that die, get killed, and then later maybe they retire, and then you hear about they have this illness or that illness. That is so that, and I'm going to connect this, the wealth that that individual, speaking particularly about African American, the wealth that that individual has accrued in their lifetime goes to who they married. There are very, very few African Americans that are very, very successful that are not married to someone of their own race. There are very few. So all of their wealth is going to the widow who happens to be of a different ethnicity. This is what we're conditioned to do. The CIA, dare I say, has a large say in the distribution of wealth. Now we're going to go back to this little scene. This scene, Robin Hood. Let me explain it. The female fox, Fraternal Order of X. Okay? Those are Eastern Stars. The male fox, Fraternal Order of X. Those are Masons, Scottish Rite, others like that. I stated to you who the bear is. The bear is California. California still stands to be one of the most outspoken progressive states in the United States. To say the least, that things that happen in America initially begin in California. I understand why that happens now. Not simply, but partly because of my situation. The snake is, I stated, it's witches and warlocks, CIA, the government, using whatever tactics they need to use to get wealth from individuals that perhaps don't even know who their real families are, don't even know their bloodline, so they can be robbed blind. Okay? The lion, the Leo, the British Empire with all the gold. That's where all this goes. That's where all this goes. America's an investment. England is supposed to be the mother country. Because I was born here, America is my country. I am a descendant, as I'm believing, of somewhere along my line, Africans. But I think that I'm a mutt with Latin in addition to Jewish in my line. And I don't think some people that knew that about me knew that. Or maybe they did. Maybe they did. I don't know. But anyway. So you have to present to the rest of the world a reason to come to America. Stating or making people believe that you can come here and have the American dream. We're going to help you. As I stated, 7-8 years tax-free. Start your store, come with your money, or we'll give you the money. While the people here in this country are stepped on, spit on, looked at like we can't do good for ourselves, not knowing the things that are actually working against us in the background. Now this gets deeper. I personally believe that the British Empire are descendants of Egyptians. Let me clear that for you. Let me clear it up for you. It is somewhere, what I've read, that there was a pharaoh, I don't want to say a name and be wrong, there was a pharaoh that got into a disagreement with a particular high priest or high priestess, and this pharaoh got rid of him. A high priest or high priestess are along the lines of witches and warlocks. Okay? For the high priest or high priestess to be descendants, for British Empire to be descendants of witches and warlocks, high priest, high priestess of the Egyptian culture, for that to have happened, one, like I stated, they got into a tiff with a particular pharaoh. Look this up, it's there. They were banished. I believe when they were banished, they went about finding a way to have the authority that they had gotten up to that point. But I believe that was the reason, the little tiff between the pharaoh and the high priest, or whatever you want to call it, was the fact that they had as much power as the pharaoh. In Egypt, the pharaoh believed and thought and viewed themselves and wanted people to view them as a god. So that was a no-no for the high priest, the high priestess, to challenge the pharaoh. The pharaoh got rid of them. The British Empire descendants, they bury people in their monarchy that died the exact same way that they did in Egypt. Now this is going to get a little weird. Let's go back to the CIA and the drugs. So you have to keep poverty. How do you do that? You have people addicted to drugs. You also have businesses that are non-profits that go about providing shelter for individuals, and some either provide them the available counseling, AA, NA, CA, all the A's for addiction as a backdrop or something for them to fall back on, in addition to just being a shelter. So how are you going to get people to go to this shelter with addictions? Remember, the CIA is flooding the hood, the ghettos, with drugs, right? Yeah, that's how you do it. You make them addicts. You put them in a situation where they can no longer be where they are. And finally, when they decide to get their life right, they go to a shelter, get their life together, then all hell breaks loose, as in my case. With addition to the fact that, as I stated, I was misled into signing paperwork, believing this paperwork was pertaining to a lawsuit to allegedly my mom being being killed, right? And I was about to say being died, being killed, car accident, whatever, something like that. So I signed this paperwork, and I get this little bitty money. And while I thought my life was going to go a certain way, and people thought that I was going to buy a bunch of drugs and everything, I did the exact opposite of what they thought I would do. And I think that made people scratch their head about, who the hell is he? This man gets dang near $100,000, and he doesn't go buy a bunch of drugs and stuff to sell. He stops selling drugs. He gets a job. He buys a tow truck. Who is he? I was someone in a position that they placed me in, but unbeknownst to the people that were observing me at that particular time, to scratch their head, say, yeah, he got this money, he's going to buy these drugs, we're going to catch him and all. I didn't do that. They didn't know the CIA had been involved in my life at an early age. They didn't know that. They also didn't know that they used me in the military, as I state, and I'm going to continue to state. I wasn't 17 when I went into the military. I was 15. I looked real young overseas in Spain, and they used me for Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father. Ghislaine Maxwell was the girlfriend to Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't mention that. Jeffrey Epstein came to my foster home when I stayed in Evanston, Illinois. I look in his history. He's from Boston or Massachusetts or whatever. So what the hell was he doing in Chicago and Evanston at a foster home? He was looking at the children. That was the reason why there was another person there, Jonathan Bazanson, I remember names, who was Caucasian, who was a friend of this foster father of mine, who would take me outside and just take pictures. What for? This is CIA bullshit. Excuse my language. I'm telling myself. Epstein came to the foster home to see what he had available. Epstein was killed because he was connected to CIA. CIA that needed children so they could vie the interests of dignitaries and diplomats in other countries that had a penchant for for sleeping with young kids. That's how the CIA is involved. CIA, they're supposed to be more concerned about gathering intelligence abroad, and the way they do that is they provide, as I stated, we are the investment. People here in the United States are the investment that the government uses for leverage so that they may put a what do you call those? You know what I'm talking about. Another country, an embassy, or whatever. Or just get someone to see things their way so they could. This is what they do. The CIA, which I thought, in addition to gathering evidence abroad, they use us to get that evidence, and then they go about the whole process of trying to eliminate you, which is, in my particular case, very, very prevalent. The scars that I have on my body, outside and inside, is as a result of the CIA being involved in my life. What they have done, I can't even put a price tag on that. I can't. I really can't say the justice that I would like to see in this particular case, because what I'm sharing right now, I have shared, I've written it down, I've shared it vocally. This time it's on camera so you can hear me. I'm former military. I signed an oath because I thought that I could have the American dream. But there are people that exist in this country that find the agenda for this country more important than one individual's life. And you really, really, you have no hope if you are a minority. But why is all this? The picture again. There are proceeds that goes back to the British Empire. If you guys didn't know, with Desert Shield, Desert Storm, there were treasures that were recovered and everything. Bush made sure that the British Empire had their pick of the treasures that were recovered when we went over to Kuwait, Iraq, or whatever. Britain is the homeland for the founding of America. I'm born in America, but my descendants, as I stated, because I am African American, is Africa. What they want here in America is people to do what it is that they want them to do. No questions. And me doing what I thought I wanted to do was as a result of the childhood trauma that I was placed in and under. I firmly understand the dynamics of that right now. The way that I believe that I was able to heal from the sexual abuse, the child molestation that I experienced and undergone before foster care and then in foster care, was with me explaining what I've explained so far, that it was purposeful. And the thing about that is that they are not taking the children of the CIA officers or the FBI or any politician. They are taking the children of people that are struggling to make it, children from people in the ghettos. And some, I stated this before, the CIA perhaps has a contract, like I will say this, I believe it was Turkey, Morocco, I stand corrected if I'm wrong. Their legal age for marriage was like 15. I personally believe CIA had a contract with Morocco or one of those sovereign nations, whatever, that had a lot to do with America being here. And they're getting their youth and bringing them here to set people up and then send them back. Why? What is all this sleight of hand, throwing rocks, and what is it for? Let me try to address that. As much as science would like to argue or beg to differ, civilization started in Africa. I stated before that the African is the prototype for this planet. We are perfectly equipped to live or be anywhere. Our body has been designed that way. I would hate to believe that a Caucasian designed an African to be the way they are, but seeing how, I stated before, the Bible said There was dark in the beginning. There were Africans in the beginning. It tells you in the Bible. It was dark. There were Africans in the beginning. Only Africans. And then, let there be light. From these Africans, you got light. You got Caucasians. The Caucasians you got ended up being the descendants of high priest and high priestess from Egypt that are now running the British Empire. And as you know, Egypt, the reign of the pharaohs and all that failed. But what the high priest and high priestess that will go on to become known to me, my understanding, as the British Empire, they went everywhere. See, what Egypt did, they had ports. Egypt had ports, and they had people come from all over the world, and all Egypt wanted was their knowledge. That as the model for what the high priest and high priestess has to do to get the type of notoriety that Egypt had. They didn't have people all over the world coming to them. They traveled all over the world. And to this day, the British Empire has a foot or a say just about anywhere on this earth. Egypt didn't have to leave their home to do that. But when they got rid of the high priest and high priestess, those people, they had to travel. That's why they're powerful. The little small country, British Empire, is so damn small. How can something so small have so much power? But here's something I want to say too, and I'm going to tie this off. The descendants of Africans, the descendants of Egyptians, their bloodline is still relevant. The British Empire knows that the Egyptian bloodline is still relevant, and that they truly have no power over that bloodline. I'm going to leave that open-ended like that. I do believe that gifts and abilities may skip generations, but it's still prevalent and will be passed down through DNA. And every so often, an individual will show up with that particular DNA that they find out or discover, and they do everything in their power to keep this person from knowing who they are. Because it's all about money. Money, which is an illusion. Life is not about money. Man made money. How can life be about something that we made? Life is not about money. Life is about living and learning. Living, learning, loving. Wow. That's what it's about. So, again, second time, I'm going to tie it off. I don't know. I know I missed a bunch of stuff in here that I really wanted to mention. And I'm going to say this in conclusion, because I don't think people know how much I really know. I'm going to say this. There was a shelter that I worked for. I was a participant, and then I became an employee later. And this particular shelter had a particular individual that was the chief operating officer. And this chief operating officer, he passed. Let me clearly say this to you. That chief operating officer did 30, 40 years with them. He was an alcoholic. He passed. Rest in peace. His body died. So, going back to that question someone asked, how do secret societies make money? This particular person, who was the chief operating officer of this shelter that was ran by a secret society, he died. His body died. Please understand what I'm saying about that. And I do personally know that there is someone that is kind of a thorn in my side or thorn in my eye. that has the same energy that this chief operating officer, he passed, he's dead, but this person has the same energy. This young person that's 30, 35, 40 years his junior, has the same energy. That tells me something. Let me skip to this and I'm going to tie it off again. The U.S. military, I was in the Navy. There was a low vibrational hum on the ship. Anyone been in the service, in the Navy specifically, knows what I'm talking about. A low vibrational hum. This low vibrational hum is the same low vibrational hum I felt at this shelter that I was a participant and later an employee. This low vibrational hum is the same thing that's underneath my foot right now. Matter of fact, this caused me to go and purchase something. This is a device that detects hidden cameras, RF signals, all type of signals and stuff. And just so I get this on camera, okay, where is it? I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna get it away. What I'm gonna do, I'm here right now, it's going on. I'm gonna have to pick the camera up for this. Watch this. I'm gonna turn down. I'm over here now. It's not going off. I'm over here. It's not going off. I'm coming back to where I'm sitting. This is where I sit. It's a low vibrational hum. Okay? So, in conclusion, should I put this back up? I apologize. In conclusion, low vibrational hum, machines on board a U.S. aircraft carrier. Low vibrational hum at a shelter, downtown Skid Row, Los Angeles. Low vibrational hum underneath my floor in government housing. Now I'll go back to what I stated. The chief operating officer, he died. His body died. But there's someone that I know who has his energy. This machine does more than just vibrate. I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for listening.